Okay, so tonight's discussion, we're going to talk about the lean portfolio management in the scaled agile framework. And the goal of the lean portfolio management is to align strategy with execution. We're going to be discussing version 5.0, which is the latest version. I'm an SPC 5.0 and also an LPM 5.0. And I've implemented portfolio at a couple different companies. So here's our agenda. So why lean portfolio management? And then we're going to define a safe portfolio. And then we're going to connect that to the enterprise strategy. We're going to talk about how to do that. And then we're going to maintain the portfolio vision, establish portfolio flow, establish lean budgets and guardrails, support agile portfolio operations, and apply lean governance. Okay. So first question, why lean portfolio management? I think it's clear now that all the biggest companies need to be able to make decisions quickly in an agile fashion, in a lean agile fashion. Lean is all about eliminating delays. How many companies had to change their IT portfolio after COVID hit? If they didn't, they probably missed the boat on opportunities. It was amazing how the biggest companies actually pivoted and took advantage of that situation. You know, Walmart was through the roof on profits. So was Amazon. It's because they took advantage of the situation. And so companies that can pivot and perform in an agile manner at the highest level are likely to be more successful than companies that can't. The old strategy of budgeting and planning for delivery for the year in October, November for the next year are long gone for successful companies. That's why we have to be lean. So challenges, annual planning, perpetual overload. I see that all the time when I come into a company. Phase gate approval process, overly detailed speculative business cases, 400-page business requirement documents, measuring outputs versus outcomes. And so these are all challenges in implementing a lean portfolio. So traditional approach versus lean agile approach. I'll just go over a couple of them. Traditional approach, big upfront, top-down annual planning and budgeting, totally been there. Versus value stream budgeting, which adjusts dynamically with participatory budgeting. This is one of the latest concepts in lean agile portfolio management is lean budgeting. Very few companies are actually doing that, but it's the latest thing and it actually works very well. See another one, overly detailed business cases based on speculative ROI versus a lean business case with a minimum valuable product, business outcome hypotheses, agile forecasting and estimating. There's no comparison. We have to be able to act quickly. And so the lean business case with the MVP is following the lean startup movement. So here's a big picture looks like in SAFE. You go to Scaled Agile Framework and it's right there at the top of the homepage. And the beauty of the Scaled Agile Framework is it's an open architecture. You can learn everything you need to learn from this website. You can go and buy the reference manual for 800 pages, which is all fine. But you can click every one of these icons and a page opens up and maybe more pages open up and maybe more pages open up. And all that information actually very closely equals the reference manual. So nothing is hidden. You know, they make their money selling classes and partnerships, but actual information to learn is freely available, and that's been one of the beauties of it. And so the balls around the outside on the left side and then the one on the bottom, those are all the core competencies. And in order to be successful with a full transformation, your company needs to be competent in every one of these core competencies. And so one of the ones on the left, second from the top, is lean portfolio management. So that's the one we're going to focus on. So Here is all the different competencies, and so to be successful, to succeed at business agility, you have to be able to succeed at the lean portfolio management level. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. And so that really focuses on three things: strategy and investment funding, agile portfolio operations, and lean governance. So in order to execute on that, we have to have a basic understanding of the safe, lean, agile principles. And the lean portfolio management really focuses on these four, the four that are blue. Take an economic view, and then number 5, base milestones on objective evaluation of working systems. Number 6, visualize and limit our WIP, our work in process, reduce batch sizes and manage queue lengths. And number 9, decentralized decision making. All these are important to do a full safe transformation, but these 4 are especially important at the portfolio level. So let's take a look at those very briefly. So principle number 1, take an economic view. This one is number 1 because it maybe is the most important. And so in order to take that economic view, we need to deliver early and often. We need to operate with lean budgets and guardrails, understand economic trade-offs and solutions. So if we look at that economic trade-offs on the top right there, do we spend more time on development costs? Do we build the perfect thing, or do we build the thing that we can deliver to the market the quickest? How much risk are we going to incorporate? And so all these factors need to be taken into account. And so also we need to take a look at suppliers, and then we also need to sequence our jobs based on something called weighted shortest job first, or WSJF, which was developed by Don Reinertsen in Principles of Product Development Flow, which focuses on prioritization based on the cost of delay. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but that's a very important concept. So then principle number 5, base milestones on objective working systems. So that means I don't want to see a PowerPoint. I don't want to see code that doesn't work. Show me. And so it has to work, and it has to work in an integrated environment. And so just showing little pieces of something working is no longer acceptable. We need to see how it works in the bigger system. And so taking a systems approach is also one of the other principles, where we always have to look at the bigger system. We don't want to build the best engine if we're building a car. We need to build the best engine that fits in that car that we've developed. So maybe it's has too much power for the transmission, or it's too heavy for the perfect center of gravity. So we always have to take a systems approach and base that success on an objective evaluation. Principle 6, visualize and limit WIP. Visualize means we're going to make all of our work transparent. No more hidden projects, and limit our WIP. We need to focus on how much we're working on. Do you want to work on 10 projects and get them all done at 10% of the speed, or do you want to work on one project and get it through the finish line as fast as possible? The goal is to get it finished as soon as possible, because then it's going to be in the customer's hands, and you're going to get that feedback. You're going to benefit from that customer value in the marketplace, or wherever the customer is going to be benefiting from that. The sooner we can get that feedback, the sooner we're going to know if we're on track or if we're off track. And so it's all about speed. Principle 9, decentralized decision making. The biggest, most important, strategic, long-lived decisions need to be centralized. Am I going to implement SAP or Oracle? That's a very, very big strategic decision. I wouldn't leave that to a particular team. That would be a very senior executive decision. But smaller decisions need to be made at the team level. Whatever decision is made at the lowest level possible, to let them build up the character to be able to make these decisions. Okay, so now let's focus on the lean portfolio management in SAFE. So the lean portfolio management competency. It aligns strategy execution by applying lean and systems thinking approaches to strategy and investment funding, agile portfolio operations, and governance. So let's take all those same things that we were using at the program level with agile release trains, and let's apply them to the portfolio. So this is a picture of the SAFe implementation roadmap. And so this is typical, but it doesn't have to be followed. And so in this roadmap, we have the lean portfolio management class being delivered to executives early on, but not at the very beginning. And then you implement some agile release trains, and then you extend to the portfolio after you have at least a couple of agile release trains. So that way you have a portfolio of work to prioritize, make trade-off decisions, and plan. And so it's not typically done at the beginning. I have seen it done at the beginning, but it's typically not done at the beginning. And so the LPM operates through 3 essential collaborations. Strategy and investment funding, that's going to be your executives, business owners, and architects. And so the enterprise architect, this is typically a role and not a person. At a big company, the architect has to know too many things. It could be a team of people. And so then the next one, agile portfolio operations, that's going to be your agile project management office, your lean agile center of excellence, your release train engineers, scrum masters, and the community of practice, and anybody else that rolls up through the agile office. And then lean governance, that's going to be the APMO, the architects, and the business owners. Let's take a look at our KPIs. Let's take a look at our continuous compliance, so that we're following the rules that we put in place. So let's define what a portfolio is. A portfolio is a collection of development value streams. Each value stream builds, supports, and maintains solutions. Solutions are delivered to the customer, whether internal or external, to the enterprise. And that word at the top there, development, that's in italics because that's the important thing here. A value stream in a portfolio is typically not an operational value stream. It's a development value stream. So what does that mean? Well, first, let's take a look at the sequence of works. The value stream is a sequence of steps to deliver value to the customer. So development value stream usually starts with an idea, and then it ends with release and measurement, and then all the steps in between. So to get to the point where we're looking at development value streams, first we have to identify the operational value stream, then we identify the supporting systems to the operational value stream, and then who actually develops the systems of that operational value streams, and then identify value streams that build these systems, and then those are going to be agile release trains, except in the instance of if we're at the solution level in SAFe. That's getting a little more advanced. I don't want to get into too much of the weeds there, but then it can be several agile release trains in a single value stream. So beginning, like I said, at the trigger. Trigger starts with an important event, perhaps a customer purchase order or a new feature request. So an operational value stream is going to begin with a customer requesting something. We'll show an example in a minute. But a development value stream starts with an idea, something that we want to develop. And then an operational one usually ends with dollars. And then a development one ends with release and measure. So operational and development value streams. So here's an example. An operational value stream starts when I walk into the hospital with a broken arm. So I'm going to get put into a system, and then that information moves to all kinds of different systems, and then it ends at the very end when I'm home, recovered, and paying my bill. Or maybe my insurance company paid my bill, hopefully. And so that's where an operational value stream, those are all those steps. And so the development value stream are the people who support all those different systems. And so in a large corporation, that can be huge. can be very huge. And so I'll show you an example a little bit later. So here's two examples of operational value streams. So I already walked through the top one. So the bottom one is I walk into a bank, say, hi, Ms. Teller, I would like to get a loan to buy a house. And so then it goes all the way through all the steps to actually getting the house and paying off that loan. That can be 10, 12, 15 different systems are going to have your data. And so they all have to talk to each other. And a value stream is all about identifying the people that are in that value stream and trying to eliminate delay. So development value streams: define, build, test, release. That's the standard steps in developing something in IT. So systems we build support these operational value streams. So you can have an operational value stream, but you have to always have a development value stream too, because the teller, the bank manager, they're not going to be writing code to update these systems. That's going to be a different organization. And so in that instance, the customer can either be the person walking into the bank, or maybe the customer is going to be the financial analyst who uses the system that you're going to develop. But either way, operational value stream is the top level, and then the development value stream supports that operational value stream. So then we take a look at all these folks at the bottom. These are the ones that are supporting that development value stream. So then we make some logical choices, typically by location, or that's one of the most common ways to do it, is to break people up into agile release trains, or ARTs. And each ART, like I said, if it's a typical implementation, one ART will equal one value stream. If it's a very large implementation, then one ART can, several ARTs can be in one value stream. That's what, like I said, only at the portfolio level. So we take a look at each ART has a particular capacity based on the number of teams and the number of points. As you know, points is our currency in Agile. So an Agile release train can have a velocity of a certain amount of points. In this example here, we broke it out into too many Agile release trains. So the ART number 3, if they're working on that particular value stream or feature, they have too much capacity. They're going to be sitting around twiddling their thumbs, versus ART number 1 has too much work. And so by combining ARTs into what we like to say 50 to 125 people is the ideal ART, so that work can be combined and we can get work done in a quicker fashion. So once we've identified these value streams, we create a value stream canvas, and that would show the Agile release trains at the bottom. So that's in a situation where you have a multiple Agile release trains, and then we want to document solutions and solution content, our KPIs, all these things. And this is a living document. It needs to be updated on a regular basis. And here's an example of an actual Agile, value stream map that we created at a transformation a little while back, where the yellow bar at the top, sales and service, these were our two value streams. And so sales, and then once the sale was made, then the service value stream takes over. And so each of these are operational value streams, and so it ends in dollars where the sale is made, and then service is where you make your ongoing payments, and then eventually we were going to go to claims. This was an insurance company. So then we identified all the systems. So the systems are in green, and then that we had control of, and then the red systems were ones we did not have control of. We had to rely on a different organization. So that became a dependency. So we had to deal with that to bring them in to our value stream representation to eliminate delay. So in a smaller company, typically a single portfolio can oversee that company. In a larger enterprise, it can take several. I was on the USAA Agile Transformation, Safe Agile Transformation. They had 8 just in the insurance company. The bank was a different one. So the largest companies have several portfolios. So we take a look at the organizations inside that portfolio, and oftentimes they're in channels, silos. I came to a transformation, and they had, the testing was separate from development, the business was separate, and so it was hard to get communication flowing and eliminating delays to get things done. All that has to be put into a big team, and so that's when we get the Agile Release Train, a team of teams. So here we're gonna connect the portfolio to the enterprise strategy. So strategy and investment funding collaboration. Strategy and investment funding ensures the entire portfolio is aligned and funded to create and maintain the solutions needed to meet business targets. So in order to do that, we need to connect to the strategy, the enterprise strategy, maintain a portfolio vision, realize portfolio vision through epics, establish lean budgets and guardrails, and establish flow. So the flow part, that's going to be through a Kanban. So an example of a good and a bad strategic theme. A bad one would be increase shareholder wealth. Well, that's a little bit too vague. But a good one would be appeal to younger demographic, 18 to 29. One thing you notice here is there's no time date on here. A strategic theme is a long-lived goal. And so it doesn't have to have a time. And actually, in most instances, I don't see them having times. So the information that goes into formulating an enterprise strategy, and then the output is the strategic theme. And so going into that enterprise strategy, you have all these things. You have the mission, you have the enterprise driver, you have portfolio context, KPIs, qualitative data. So all these things go into the enterprise strategy formulation, and then the output are the strategic themes. And so strategic themes are before the portfolio, and so the portfolio feeds the strategic themes with projects. Well, not projects, called epics. But so you start with the enterprise strategy, then you go to strategic themes, and then we're going to create a canvas, and then we're going to do a SWOT analysis, and then a TOES analysis. Then we're going to look at multiple potential future canvases, and then settle on a future state canvas. And then the output of that will be epics, large pieces of work. And then those epics will be supported by epic hypotheses. And then we're going to deliver those using lean budget guardrails. So strategic themes and lean budgets are outputs of the enterprise strategy. So based on that enterprise strategy, we're gonna create those strategic themes. We'll have lean budgets. We're gonna have portfolio context, and then we'll have our value streams that we already talked about, and the work will go into those value streams. So we like to describe those strategic themes with OKRs, and so an objective and key result. And so typically 3 to 5. And so we're going to have a particular objective, and so then they're going to have that key result. It reduced membership churn 20% to 5%. So that's a specific number, but it doesn't give a specific time. Increased net promoter score from 35 to 60. Once again, that's a very specific number, but it doesn't give a specific time. So strategic themes will influence the portfolio vision, the Kanban, the vision for the solution, which is right below the portfolio, value stream budgets, which we will talk about later, and the budget guardrails. So now we have to maintain that vision. So we're going to create a portfolio canvas. And so inside this canvas would have all the different value streams. So remember, we had a value stream canvas, and now we're going to put that information into a bigger canvas. So all the value streams would go into here. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, but you're going to identify all those things. And once again, this is a living, breathing document that needs to be maintained and updated. So this is an adaptation of the business model canvas, which was developed by Walter, these names here, Alexander and Ignore. There you go. So then we're going to do what's called SWOT analysis, where we take a look at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this would be a workshop with those senior people, maybe bring in some architects. So all the same people that would be on the lean portfolio management should be participating in the SWOT analysis. And then the output of the SWOT analysis, we're going to put into a TOES, where, like say for an example, here we take a look at this SWOT analysis. So internal strength. So say we have very strong Java developers. So then we're going to put that right here, very strong Java developers. And then by looking at the external opportunities, then we start brainstorming as how can your strengths be used to exploit, to maximize opportunities. And so from here, this would be brainstorming, and the output of that could be new epics. And so this is an important workshop to be completed after the SWOT. So from there, we're going to take a look at what potential feature canvases can look like, and then we're going to agree on what our future state is going to be. And then from there, the output will be ideas that we're going to develop. And so it doesn't mean they're going to all be developed. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but they're going to be put into a Kanban in the funnel or the new state. So what is a portfolio epic? And so companies need to design their own what defines an epic. I've worked at companies where it was at least $150,000. I've worked at other companies where it was at least 1,000 hours. You can define an epic based on dollars, hours, points, any of those work. Traditionally, safe, the currency is points, but whatever's comfortable with that company. So from there, an epic is broken down into features, which goes to the Agile release train, and then the teams break those down into stories and tasks, of course. And so if there's a solution level, you would have solution level features and capabilities, and so one more level. So an epic is not a project. The concept of project is anathema to SAFe. So projects typically have a start date and an end date, and a team which starts and ends. Epics are large pieces of work, but they don't have a definitive start and end date. They're put into a portfolio, and they're pulled in when the Agile release train has the capacity to pull them in. And then they're continuously prioritized using weighted shortest job first. Progress is measured again as outcomes. They're defined by the lean business case as opposed to a business requirements document. And so an epic is not a project. A lot of companies start out with projects. I've worked with companies that turn projects into epics, and that's very normal. But once you're starting going with the lean portfolio management, epic is not a project. So once we decide we have an epic, we need to define the epic hypothesis statement. So what is it we want to do? What is the current state? And what will the future state give us? Those are kind of the things that we need to define with the epic hypothesis statement. And then we need to also define business outcomes. And this is in lieu of technical outputs. It's critical that we talk at a business outcome level. And once again, using OKRs to define these business outcomes is becoming more and more popular. SAFe doesn't necessarily call for that, but I've talked to several coaches and have used that implementation where we identify our business outcomes in the form of an OKR. And then leading indicators, that's the concept of using innovation accounting. how can we measure at the earliest possible time whether our hypothesis is correct? And so this goes back to this lean startup movement. Even for really big things, we want to understand at the earliest possible time if we're on track or not on track. And then our non-functional requirements, those are the scalability, security, all the different abilities that are in the background. So then if the lean portfolio management still likes what they're looking at, then it moves to the next level and it gets a go or no go. And so this is a 2 or 3 page document. This is as opposed to a several 100-page document. And so we're going to take that information from the EPIC hypothesis and then put it in here and expand it to a little bit more. You know, we're identifying in scope, out of scope. We're going to identify the minimum viable product in the form of features. We're going to estimate those features with a low precision, and that would be ideally with points. And then we add up those points, and that's going to be the cost of that EPIC in points. And so the go or no go decision by some executives is going to be based on points. So like an EPIC might be 1,000 points, and if you've estimated a point at $1,000, which is pretty typical, it can be a little higher, it can be a little lower, but that's a normal starting point. So a 1,000-point EPIC would be $1 million initiative. So you think $1 million initiative better get approval at a pretty high level. And so that's where the lean business case comes into play. And so it's going to have this amount of analysis and decisioning. So then once it's approved, we need to identify our future vision to communicate to folks. And one of the ways to do that is a postcard from the future. If any of you have heard of the John Deere video, I would strongly urge you to go Google it or YouTube it. It talks about what farming is going to look like in the future. And it was made in 2012, and it's amazing how close they've come to the future. And so that's the kind of aspirational, motivating communication of the future vision. So establishing lean budgets and guardrails. That's still part of strategy investment funding. So lean budgets. Rather than budget for projects, we want to assign that budget to the entire value stream. So a value stream might cost, it'll be a fairly fixed cost. So say you have, I'll just make this up, 15 teams, you add up the salaries of everybody on that Agile release train, and that's going to be your run the business cost of that value stream. And so we're going to budget for that value stream. And then the work that they pull in, well, that will be prioritized and decided by the portfolio. So we're not budgeting for a particular project, we're budgeting for that value stream. And then that budget can be reviewed and adjusted on a cadence. What is common is twice a year. So every 6 months we'll take a look at the value stream budget and make adjustments as necessary. So like I said, we're going to get away from funding projects and we're going to fund the value streams. There's a lot of benefit to doing that. And so to follow through with the lean budget guardrails, we're going to do 4 different things. We're going to identify epics by horizon, and we're going to apply capacity allocation. We're going to approve significant initiatives with a lean startup, and then we're going to have continuous business engagement. So guiding by horizon. So that's where every initiative is going to be given a particular horizon. So like horizon 0 is decommissioning. We're going to get rid of this old system. We're going to retire it in the next year. So we don't want to spend too much money on it. Horizon 1, that's going to be currently getting revenue or soon to be getting revenue. And then horizon 2 is over the horizon, and then horizon 3 could be far out in the future, but we still want to do some research onto it. And so at every on a cadence, you want to take a look at those large projects and decide what percentage of our funding is going to go into which horizon. So each value stream can have a different horizon. So like, I'll just make up an example. A particular airplane, we want to spend a lot more money on the future technology versus a competing airplane in our portfolio where we're getting close to decommissioning. So it's a matter of what is the goal of that value stream. And so then we want to apply capacity allocation. So do we need to apply a large amount of money to tech debt? So like, think of it like a pie, and each slice of the pie we're gonna break out so that maybe 2/3 is for business value, 1/3 is going to be enablers, which are technical work to enable that business value, and maybe a smaller piece of pie is going to be production and maintenance. And so that needs to be reviewed and adjusted, and that can be different by value stream as well. So like a particular product might need a lot of maintenance work, but since we're sunsetting it in the next year, we're going to spend very little of our funds on new features. So that needs to be looked at and reviewed and adjusted on a cadence as well. And then once a significant initiative is identified, we're going to put that in as a lean business case, and then it'll be approved, yes or no, and then it goes into the portfolio backlog, and then it will get delivered, and then we will review it and see if we want to pivot or persevere. Continuous business owner engagement. So business owners and executives are part of the lean portfolio, and so they need to be updated and engaged on a constant basis. One of the most important aspects of a successful lean portfolio management transformation is business owner engagement. If the business owners are not engaged with technology, there's going to be some problems and it might even fail. So establish portfolio flow. So typically, if there's a waterfall portfolio, there's massive amounts of WIP, unlimited work intake. You might be a waterfall organization at the portfolio level might have 100 different projects they're working on, and the only ones that get worked on are the ones that the manager yells the loudest. And so you're constantly working on different things, or you're constantly multitasking, and things don't get done as quickly. And so here in Agile, we match demand to capacity. It's a pull system where when the Agile release train has the capacity, they pull in the work. And so we manage that with a Kanban and WIPs. So here's an example of a portfolio Kanban. The first state on the left, we call that the funnel. All new ideas go into that funnel, and then the lean portfolio management will take a look at it, and then if they like it, they'll put it into reviewing. It'll get a little more detail, and then if they like it still, they're going to put it into analyzing. It'll get more detail, and then if they still like it, they put it into the backlog for the Agile release train or that value stream to deliver, and then it goes into implementing the minimum viable product. And if that's successful, they might persevere, and that might continue for a very long period of time, as long as they're still adding business value. But at some point, the lean portfolio management committee might say, there's other things more important, so we're going to call it done. And so the columns that say reviewing and analyze, there's numbers there, 3. That's, as an example, the WIP limit. So we're only going to review 3 new big ideas at a time. We're only going to analyze 3 big new ideas at a time. So we don't pull one in until one leaves that state. So a little more detail here. These are the words underneath each one of those portfolio Kanban states. We call that exit criteria. What has to be in place for an epic to move from funnel to reviewing? Well, it has to be something that would relate to cost savings, marketplace changes, mergers, acquisitions, problems with existing solutions, or anything else the business can come up with. This is just an example. And so to move from reviewing to analyzing, you have to, let's see here, create the epic hypothesis statement, refine understanding of the epic, and then we're going to whip limit this because the people doing the reviewing, they can't review a million things. Say we have 6 business analysts that are in charge of reviewing epics. Well, maybe the whip limit is 6, so that they're working on one at a time and they can get them done, you know, maybe a few weeks for each one. And so we need to limit the whip of the reviewing and the analyzing. So then we take a look at these states a little bit more. So the funnel. There needs to be a way for all new big ideas. And so I share with people that a Google engineer invented Gmail. Well, you know, that's a giant, great new idea. And so how is he going to get that in the funnel? Well, I'm working with a transformation now that is using Jira Align, which is one of the new, latest, greatest Agile tooling. And they have something called an idea portal. So anybody in the company can submit an idea into the idea portal, and then it will run through that Epic Kanban. And so then the initial back at Epic hypothesis, then lean business case, and then if it's still approved, it goes into the backlog, and then it follows the lean startup cycle where we build the MVP, and then we make a decision: do we want to persevere or stop? So once again, the earlier you can make that decision, the more successful you will be. So the funnel, all new big ideas are welcome. So you need to put in place a tool that anybody in the company can come up with. I don't care who you are, what your level, you might come up with the greatest idea that can change that company. So you need to be able to have a capability to do that. So not just managers, not just architects can come up with great ideas. Anybody can come up with a great idea, and that's the purpose of the funnel. And then reviewing. So we have to have an initial identification of what this is. So just like a story has a format, like I want to do something, so that the Epic has a standardized format too, with the Epic hypothesis. For customers who do something, our solution is something that provides value. Unlike the current state, our solution does this. And so these are basic things you need to figure out. So this will help us decide, is this something we want to do? So then the leading indicators, that's the innovation accounting, where we can identify whether it's on track or not at the earliest possible time. So then in the analyzing state, this is where it gets the go, no go. And so I tell people to compare this to Shark Tank, where you have that epic owner. He's going to come, he or she is going to come before the Lean Portfolio Management Committee, present the case on why this is a great thing to do, and why we should, why the company should invest 1,000 points or $1 million into this. You're going to describe the current state, the future state, the MVP, the risks, and then the Lean Portfolio Management Committee will actually make a go or no go. How I have set it up is they vote on their phones, and so they make a decision, go or no go. And so just because it's no go doesn't mean it goes into the trash can. It often means it needs more information. You can come back next month when you have more information, or you answer some questions. And so it's not discouraging to get a no go. Then if it goes into the backlog, that means that the portfolio management committee has approved it, but it still has to get into the queue for the particular value stream that it's supporting. And so it should be obvious what value stream should get it, because the value streams are for different products. And so every one of these states, we're prioritizing our work based on a weighted shortest job first. And so say you have an epic that just got approved and it goes into the portfolio backlog. Maybe it's a super duper idea and it goes to the top right away. So everything else has to wait. And so we're going to put that at the top, and so it can get delivered right away. So then we're in the implementing state, and so that MVP is a bunch of features, and then those features are then prioritized and delivered in the program backlogs via the PI planning, program increment planning, and then the arts track that and communicate back to the Epic owner and the portfolio. So we're following the lean startup cycle where the Epic goes into the portfolio Kanban, it's approved, the Epic and evaluate the MVP. And so is that hypothesis, has it been proven? No. Okay. Are we going to try it again, or are we going to stop? That decision has to be made by the lean portfolio management. And so if the hypothesis is proven yes, then that Epic owner will present around 2 through X of funding. And so as an example, say you have an Epic that's 1,000 points or $1 million. Lean portfolio management says, we love your idea. It's we're approving it. Go build it and get back to us. And so then that $1 million MVP is delivered back to the lean portfolio management and say, okay, it was very successful. Let me show you why. Let me show you how. And now I'd like to expand that globally. And so I'd like $10 million. And so that's how it could work. And that could keep going. So the benefits of a portfolio Kanban makes the business initiatives more visible. So I worked in a company where I was a scrum master. I could look at a story. The parent of that story is a feature. The parent of that feature is an epic. And I could see even how that attaches to a strategic theme. So everything is transparent. And so let's see here. It helps drive collaboration amongst key stakeholders. And so different people from different parts of the business and technology get together in this lean portfolio management. And so then let's see, it brings structure analysis to the go or no go. We provide WIP limits, and the anticipated outcome hypothesis is evaluated. And so hopefully it's done sooner rather than later. An MVP should not take a year. If it takes 3 months or less, that's ideal. I've seen it 6 months or 9 months, not ideal, but still okay. But it should never take a year. It's not. I emphasize it's not M or minimum, because we need to understand if we're on the right track as soon as possible. Support portfolio operations. Let's see here. Portfolio operations, that's going to be the APMO, the Lean Agile Center of Excellence, and the role is to coordinate value streams, support project execution, program execution, and foster operational excellence. So value streams, if you're building something really big, you might have to coordinate across value streams. And so maybe the hardware is one value stream and the software is another value stream. And so that coordination has to happen at the portfolio level. So coordination of roles and responsibilities. At the solution level, if we're building something really big, an agile release train, you can have multiple agile release trains inside a solution train, which is going to be that value stream. And so several release train engineers, solution train engineers have to coordinate to build that really big thing. We have to apply cadence, and so cadence and synchronization. Ideally, The PIs should be on the same date and should start and finish the same. We're going to have system level demos on a cadence so that we can see that the hardware and the software are working together. And let's demonstrate that with a working system. Introducing new portfolio work into the PI. So that's where the epic is approved, it's broken down into features, and then it's delivered to the product managers and the release train engineers, and they work with their teams, and it goes into the PI planning, and then it's actually built. And so this is like a, think of it like an on-ramp to the PI planning. And so ensure integration points. So SAFE likes to do a system level demo every iteration. That's really difficult sometimes. And so at the very, very least, you need to do it once every PI. And so at that PI, usually right before the PI planning, is something called the INA, that's inspect and adapt. So we're going to do a system level demo with everything integrated and see how it's working and make those decisions. Portfolio roadmap. So with SAFE, we have a PI roadmap, which is going to be a pretty firm commitment for one PI. And then past one PI, it's a forecast. And so a portfolio roadmap is a forecast because it can't be a hard commitment, but it can be forecasted. So based on forecasting the different value streams, you could combine those and see how they integrate and then make a forecast. So a portfolio roadmap can be forecasting out years, but it has to be made clear that this is a forecast and not a commitment. So when we plan out our roadmap, sometimes we have to account for market rhythms, like a toy maker, Christmas time. We have to have that product out on the shelves. I don't know, end of summer. If you're building electronics, there might be a particular convention you have to have it ready for, and so you have to deliver to that milestone or rhythm, or you're going to lose the value of that product. So deploying and releasing the portfolio. So we like to be able to release on demand, but at the very least, we have to release on a cadence. And so that's going to be those PI events. And so the system team will assist with integrating the work across those value streams so that work can be integrated and tested at those PI points. Supporting program execution. So the PMO turns into the Agile PMO, and then you create something called a LACE, the Lean Agile Center of Excellence. And the LACE is going to focus on the transformation. The APMO really focuses more on the ongoing activities that continue after the transformation. And so if you bring in an Agile coach, you bring in any kind of a consultant, they would be working in the LACE, and then the LACE would support the PMO, the Agile PMO. So the APMO supports the SAFE transformation. So once the transformation is complete, the APMO still exists. It doesn't go away. It's just like a PMO, but it's an Agile PMO. But the LACE might be completed once the Agile transformation is successful and stable. Then the LACE is no longer needed. And so we're going to drive operational excellence with communities of practice. So there should be a community of practice for Scrum Masters, for product owners, for developers, for QA people, for all the different domains of shared interest. So like, here's an example. We have RTEs, Scrum Masters, testers, Java people, DevOps people, and this is anybody's open to come. So like, say I'm a Scrum Master, but I really want to learn how to be an RTE. Well, I'm going to start attending the RTE community of practice. So there's a lot of opportunity to learn new concepts here. So then fostering operational excellence. So this is the LACE, the Lean Agile Center of Excellence. They focus on the safe transformation, provide coaching, establish objective metrics, facilitate value stream mapping workshops, the different activities which are critical to a transformation. There's different LACE models. The biggest companies use a hub and spoke model where you have a LACE, a central LACE, and then each business unit has their own LACE, and versus decentralized versus centralized. They all work. They're all acceptable. It just depends on how big your company is and how you need to make it succeed. So support operational excellence with the portfolio sync. So the lean portfolio management, how often should these folks get together and make decisions? Monthly is common, twice a month is also common, but it depends on what you're working on, how much work there is to do. So the purpose is to focus on the strategy and investment funding, agile portfolio operations, and lean governance. And so different items should be on the agenda each meeting, sometimes on a cadence, sometimes as needed. And so here's an example of a portfolio sync calendar. So here we're doing a portfolio sync every month, and then we're doing a strategic review every quarter, and then we're doing participatory budgeting twice a year. So this is just an example. I'm not saying this has to be this way at all. Here's another example of how it's done. So here we do PI planning every, I don't know what this is here, but we're doing a portfolio sync a couple of times in between the PI planning. So looks like it's quarterly, and then on the other odd months we're doing portfolio syncs. And so traditional versus agile contracting, another new concept we have to understand. So traditional contracting is, I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money, and I expect to do a certain amount of things. That's waterfall. Agile contracting is let's come into an agreement where we're going to work together for a period of time. I'm going to pay you a fair amount of money, and then we're going to deliver the highest quality product we can. So these are traditional contract types: firm fixed price, target price, cost plus, time and materials. These are very traditional and still used extensively. However, the agile contract is just like an agile team. With waterfall, we have fixed scope. I need you to do this, and then variable is cost and schedule. I'll get it done as soon as I can. It might take a little longer, and then it might cost a little bit more. Whereas agile, it turns it on its head. I'm going to contract you for 6 months, 2 PIs, and we have an identified schedule, and we have an identified cost because you're going to be here for 6 months. But what is going to flex is the scope. We're going to get done as much as we can, but it's going to be high quality, and when it's ready, it's ready. When it's done, it's done. And so we're going to only deliver highest quality in that 6-month period. Optimizing economic value with agile contracts. The goal is to seek a win-win approach that balances long and short-term economic outcomes for both parties. Apply lean governance. So lean governance collaboration. Lean governance manages spending, audit compliance, forecasting, expenses, and measurement. Forecast budget dynamically, measure portfolio performance, coordinate continuous compliance. So big upfront annual plan. This is extremely common. Not that many companies are doing agile budgeting yet, but I expect that to change. It's really becoming more popular. And so with agile budgeting, you're going to take a look at the value stream budget on a cadence. Common is every 6 months. So input to that is going to be, you're going to look at your current budget, and then we're going to take a look at the changes to the themes, the market changes, the product feedback, internal, external economic indicators or conditions, and then we're going to come up with a new budget. And so that should happen maybe twice a year. And so then that budget will be applied to the different value streams. So as an example, one value stream might change their budget in 6 months, so it's going to go down a little bit. So the significant expense for a value stream is teams. So that means that maybe this value stream had 15 teams, and 4 of the teams are going to get moved to value stream number 2, which their budget just went up. And so we want to keep the teams together and then move the work into the teams. So participatory budgeting, think of it like playing Monopoly with play money to make decisions for the company. And so we'll get into a little more detail what that looks like in a second. So the steps to get to participatory budgeting: prepare the content. So we have to have a business context, new portfolio epics, baseline costs, that's the run the business, and then the new epics and cost estimates. So that should be identified and socialized for everybody that comes to the participatory budgeting. So think of it like a program. And then assemble the participants, should be a combination of business and technology people. And then you conduct the forum, and then you analyze the results. And this is just a tool for the portfolio management to make the budgeting decisions. They don't have to follow everything that in here, but it's a recommendation. And so then based on the epics that were approved in the participatory budgeting, they would be assigned to the different value streams, and then that might affect the different value stream budget. So the group of people in the participatory budgeting, they like a particular epic, well, that's going to be a particular value stream, so that value stream might get more money for that 6-month period. Gather the right people, and so a combination of architects, business owners, fiduciaries, stakeholders, and so combination of everybody. And so you have to separate out the run the business and the grow the business. So the run the business, to keep the lights on, we're not going to turn the lights off, and so that has to be set aside, and we're not going to play with that money. But the grow the business money, we're going to talk about what's important to us and how we can grow the business the best. And so participatory budgeting here, you have the current value stream budgets, and then the portfolio roadmap, grow the business, and then the outcome is the new value stream budgets. So how do you run the participatory budgeting? Each table has participants from different value streams, gets money representing the total portfolio budget. So say it's $50 million. Each table must allocate the run the business budgets. Okay, so then if it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, each person at the table has a certain amount of money. They have to fork over the money for the run the business budget. Okay, they only have so much left. Okay, so now they each have a combination of the grow the business money, and they have a list of epics that they've looked at, and they're going, okay, so I like this idea the best. I want to put all my money towards this, and then somebody else will say, nah, well, that's not really right. We need to spread it out. And so there's going to be a open, active discussion on what's the most important for the organization. And so each table would have a different value stream. And so multiple tables can have the same value stream, but then they're going to come up with recommendations based on what they think is most important to grow the business. So output of the participatory budgeting is going to be new value stream budgets, and then a list of epics that are approved. Typically, that's going to be epics that are in the portfolio backlog, but you can also include that are in the analyzing and review, because they could easily be built in the next cycle, which would be 2 PIs if you're doing participatory budgeting every 2 PIs. Then the participatory budgeting benefits helps ensure that that empowered value stream stakeholders are making the best possible decisions. More ownership improves morale, typically results in greater efforts by employees to achieve what they are forecasted. What you'll find is that people are willing to vote against their own idea if they see that a particular idea is actually more valuable to the business. And so you're going to see the team self-managing to empower each other to identify the best things to build. So then we adjust those value stream budgets after the participatory budgeting. So value stream can go up or down or stay the same. And then lastly, we're gonna prioritize those budgets with the weighted shortest job first to sequence the work. And so yeah, here's an example of the different epics that were approved, and based on the total budget, the Agile release trains inside the value streams are going to shift the money a little bit. So in this example, it went from 18 to 15 million. So the two Agile release trains in the value stream at the bottom, they lost a few teams. So they're going to get moved to the upper value stream that went from 10 to 13. So we're going to prioritize that work. At every step, we're going to prioritize that work. And so Don Reinerson says, if you only quantify one thing, quantify the cost of delay. And so how he describes that is, say you have two big things you want to build. They're both good. They're both important. You want to build the one that will cost you the most if you don't build it in 2 months. So ask yourself that question. Maybe there's a compliance deadline of $1 million a day. Maybe there's a conference that is in 3 months, and if you don't have it to present, it completely loses all of its value. So we want to take a look at that cost of delay. And so we break that up with proxies. And so one of them is user business value, another one is time criticality, another one is risk reduction and opportunity enablement. And we assign each of those a Fibonacci number. And then we also take a look at the job duration or job size as our proxy, and that's also a Fibonacci number. And then you put those into a spreadsheet, and then you sort based on the highest weighted shortest job first. Most Agile tools have a plugin to support that, whether it's Rally, Jira, Azure. They all have plugins to support weighted shortest job first prioritization of features and epics. And so then those are prioritized for work. And so they would go into the, so these are portfolio epics that are prioritized based on that weighted shortest job first. So then when we take a look at the time criticality, we have to take into consideration that market window that we talked about earlier. And so that's where we're taking a look at, maybe Christmas, or maybe the SEMA show, or maybe the some computer convention. And so that's a market window we have to build to. And so how long is it going to take to build this epic? Well, it depends on the velocity of the Agile release train that is working on it. So if it's here's an example of a 4,000 point business epic. Well, if we give that to Art 1, which has a velocity of 1,200 points, it's going to be 4 PIs. And so we can forecast that as good as any waterfall Gantt chart can do by taking a look at the arithmetic and the velocity of the teams and the arts and the estimation of the epic. And so if we want it done quicker, well, let's spread it across 2 arts. So then we can generate, in this example, art 1 and 2 can work on that 4,000 point epic. Then 2,200 points per PI can be delivered. So you can spread it across all the arts if it's a super high business critical. So it's a matter of taking a look at our priorities and seeing how fast we need something. So how are we going to measure success? We take a look at measures and desired benefits. So like portfolio performance, objective and key results, LPM self-assessment. The desired benefit is better alignment. we can take a look at Net Promoter Score. That's very common, and so we can have a current and a current NPS and do that every 6 months and see how that's changing. So that way we're business customer focused, or we can take a look at defect count, cycle time. The most successful companies are releasing frequently, so the number of releases and feature cycle time is important. And so we want to be able to give that value quickly. So we're also going to take a look at the leading indicators. How fast can we identify success? Versus a lag indicator is looking at return on investment. That's lagging indicator. We have to wait for it to get out and get the money and bring in the profits. Versus a leading indicator, we might not have even collected a dime yet, but traffic to this particular site, the orders are coming in, the market influence is looking very favorable. So those are leading indicators. Value stream KPIs. So go back to those OKRs on those strategic themes. And so how are we affecting those? Are we making progress towards those strategic themes? Then we have other metrics we can look at. We have those lean portfolio performance ones we just took a look at. We also have a predictability measure. How closely are we delivering on our program increment objectives? And so this is something that happens in the PIs, the program increments, where teams have PI objectives, and that rolls up to the arts, and then that can roll up to the solution, and that can actually roll up to the portfolio. How predictable are we? If we give a particular Agile release train 1,000 points of work and they commit to doing it, how reliable are they at delivering it? And then we can take a look at deploys and releases per program increment. Like I said, the more frequently we can release, the better. And then we can look at the cumulative flow diagram. How smooth are the different states? Are we running into bottlenecks? And then we can take a look at the lean portfolio management self-assessment. How much progress are we making? Are we making progress on our self-assessment so that in this example, the red in the middle there, it's kind of middle of the range. When it gets out to the very outside of the pentagon, then we're performing at a high level. Traditional mesh, we take a look at software capitalization. With waterfall accounting methods, it's very slow and it happens in the middle. So here we can do it constantly, moving to an Agile approach with CapEx. So it features, new features can have CapEx, and then maintenance and other items can be put into OpEx, and we can flag those by feature, by story, by points, or even by hours. And so these are the different types of items that we want to capitalize or expense. So we can capitalize the salaries, cost of materials, contract labor, once we're building something. But the feasibility research and the training, that has to be expensed. And these are the different ways to account for that. The lowest precision is by story count or even feature count. And then the highest precision is going to be by story hours. And so whichever way you can extract that data easily. So here's a roadmap of a typical adoption. So you're going to start out with the alignment, establish the team, gain executive buy-in, identify opportunities, and then you move on to capture the current state, identify your strategic themes, identify your portfolio vision, establish a LACE and PMO, establish a cadence of meetings, adopt your metrics, run assessments, and continue and grow. Here's another example of a LPM roadmap that I did a couple years ago. So this is not a small thing to do. This can take several months or even a year to implement. And so when I showed you that safe implementation roadmap, it typically starts with implementing Agile release train first. And so in this example, that's the essential safe. And then once we've implemented a couple of Agile release trains, then we start talking about implementing the LPM. So then we go through these different cycles. So in this example, it took from June to March. So it took several months. It can be done quicker, but it's higher risk. It's really hard to implement change at the executive level. I'll tell you. The more coaching you can put into it, the better. But it's not an easy thing to do. Okay, questions. Open to questions.
Questions. I'm going to go ahead and read some.
Yeah.
I'm just looking in the chat here. How do you remain agile with systems thinking?
How do you remain agile? Well, at the team level, you're going to always take a look at the solution context, which is going to be your bigger system. At the portfolio level, the system thinking, the bigger the system is going to be the marketplace. And so if I'm building something, it looks great, but it's not appropriate for this market that we're building it for. We're not taking a systems approach. If I want to build, I'll give you a real life example. Toyota built a hydrogen car, but they really didn't take into account the fact that there's hardly any hydrogen stations to get hydrogen. I know people that have this hydrogen car, and they have to keep it parked inside their house because the hydrogen station doesn't have hydrogen, and they have to take an Uber to work. So that's an example of not taking systems thinking at the portfolio view.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alan. This next question is from Gerald. Is it important to identify the intersections of the operational value streams before going to developmental value streams?
Best practice is absolutely, it's mandatory, because if we jump straight to the development value stream without taking a look at the handoffs in the operational value stream, we're going to miss opportunities, because the operational value stream, we need to eliminate delay there too. And what can the development value stream do to assist in eliminating that delay? Can we develop systems that hand off the data? Like you're in a hospital, and I fill out a form to get to the emergency room. Can the input person at the front desk push a button and all of a sudden have that on the computer screen for the doctor? So what can we do to eliminate the delays in the operational value stream via the development value stream?
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? This is Gerald.
Hey, Gerald.
Hey. So this is more of like a implementation, how do you get that done question, because like I want to avoid embarking on what could appear as a giant bureaucratic process of like, let's just map everything. Let's just, really have fun with lucid charts and just map all this stuff. So what I'm trying to balance is getting a complete picture of those, like say 10 end-to-end operating processes and the subway map where they connect, versus going where the business feels the most opportunity or pain point, right now, because we're kind of like earlier in our journey on this. So what's your guidance on like trying to get that connected view of things versus like focusing in on one particular, piece of that end-to-end operational value stream that seems really ripe for this kind of thinking?
Yeah, my experience is to find a business owner who's going to be your champion and focus on that one value stream and achieve success. And then there's going to be like a floodgate of people to join the party.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
As a follow-up to that, So, because as you were going through everything, appreciate the talk. It, how mature does an organization have to be with agile concepts when you say to start with one and then the floodgates will open?
Yep.
But how mature do they have to be? Or are you assuming it's starting from no knowledge of it?
You know, as an agile coach, I'll be honest. My experience is the less waterfall an organization is, the less they know, the more successful they're going to be. And so that's why startup organizations can be much more agile than like a very traditional waterfall company like a bank or an insurance company or a military operation of some sort, defense contractor. And so it's like it's a lot easier to train somebody something new than it is to train somebody how to change what they're doing that they've known for 20 years. And so if they don't know anything about Agile, you have to start with the fundamentals. And so it's rare to implement a lean portfolio management without first having success at the team level. And so typically you go team and then program with the Agile release train, and then you mature to going to the lean portfolio management level. So get some success at the team level, and then you're gonna have some excellent stories to tell.
Okay, all right, thanks, Alan.